The fires of Troy burned like a dying star, casting long shadows over the battlefield. Amidst the chaos, one man stood still: Achilles, the warrior who had conquered fate itself. But as he gazed upon the ruins, was he truly victorious, or merely another casualty of war's endless cruelty? The war was over, but its scars would never fade. The memories of Hector, Patroclus, and all who had fallen haunted Achilles, reminding him that even the strongest warrior could not escape destiny. As he turned his back on the burning city, he carried not just the weight of his own survival, but the ghosts of those he could not save. Before we uncover the final fate of Achilles, make sure to subscribe. Step into the world of gods, heroes, and legends where history is written in ichor and honor. The fall of Troy. Troy, once a symbol of strength and glory, now lay in smoldering ruins. The towering walls, the magnificent temples, all had been consumed by the furious flames of the Greek army. After 10 long years of siege, Odysseus's cunning plan with the giant wooden horse had finally paved the way for the decisive assault. The gates that Hector had once sworn to defend with his life now stood exposed, revealing a horrifying scene. Towering flames, billowing black smoke, and the cries of the people mingling with the clash of swords and the thunder of hooves. Achilles, the invincible warrior of the Greeks, had recovered from his near-fatal injury, thanks to Chiron's care and the intervention of the gods. He stood on a hill near Troy, his spear gripped tightly, his eyes fixed on the dying city. No longer driven by the rage that had consumed him after Patroclus's death, he now carried a new resolve: to fulfill his promise to Hector, the enemy he had come to respect. He had sworn that if Troy fell, he would protect Andromache, Hector's wife, and their young son, Astyanax. The wind blew, carrying the smell of smoke and ichor. Achilles took a deep breath, feeling the heavy air press against his chest. He knew time was running out. The Greeks were slaughtering without mercy, and if he didn't act quickly, Hector's family would have no chance of survival. With a resounding roar, he charged down into the battlefield, his spear gleaming in the firelight, his heart pounding with a single purpose: to find them. The final battle. Achilles plunged into the fray like a storm, his spear swinging, piercing any enemy who dared to stand in his way. The Trojans, though exhausted and desperate, fought back with all their remaining strength. They knew their city had fallen, but they fought for honor, for their families, for what little was left of Troy. A Trojan soldier lunged at him, slashing his sword into Achilles' left arm. Pain shot through him, ichor seeping from the injury, but he did not flinch. With an angry roar, he spun and drove his spear straight into the enemy's chest, felling him instantly. Ichor splattered on his armor, but Achilles pressed on. He continued toward the palace, where he believed Andromache and Astyanax were hiding. Along the way, he faced dozens of foes. A group of Trojan warriors recognized him: Achilles, the one who had slayed Hector, their last hope. With the desperation of those with nothing left to lose, they charged at him, swords and spears striking in unison. Achilles fought like a wild beast, his spear flashing like lightning, cutting them down one by one. An arrow flew from afar, grazing his shoulder, leaving a red streak. He glanced quickly toward the city walls, where Trojan archers were trying to hold back the Greeks, but he paid it no mind. He had only one goal. "Odysseus!" Achilles shouted, when he spotted his cunning comrade commanding a group of soldiers nearby. Odysseus, with his gleaming helmet, turned, his sharp eyes meeting Achilles. "Do you know where Andromache and Astyanax are?" Achilles asked urgently. Odysseus shook his head, still swinging his sword to fell an enemy. "I'm not sure, Achilles. But the palace is the safest place. They might be there." Achilles nodded and dashed off, wasting not a second more. He ran through streets filled with fire and corpses, his heart pounding in his chest. He knew that every passing minute increased the danger for Andromache and Astyanax. The search amidst chaos. The palace of King Priam, once the center of Troy's power, now lay in ruins. The marble walls were cracked, the expensive tapestries burned to ash, and statues of the gods lay toppled amidst the debris. Achilles stepped into the grand hall, where lavish feasts had once been held. now filled only with the whistling wind through the cracks and the choking smell of smoke. "Andromache! Astyanax!" he shouted, his voice echoing in the empty space. There was no response. He ventured deeper, passing through narrow corridors and destroyed rooms. A large pillar collapsed in front of him, forcing him to leap aside. The smoke stung his eyes, but he did not stop. Suddenly he heard the faint cry of a child. He halted, listening. The cry was small but clear, coming from a hidden corner of the palace. Achilles' heart raced. He rushed toward it, shoving open a heavy, charred wooden door. The sight before him made him freeze. Andromache sat huddled in the corner, clutching Astyanax tightly in her arms. Her hair was disheveled, her face smeared with ash, but her eyes shone with a mother's fierce determination. Astyanax, a boy of about 3, clung to his mother, his large eyes filled with fear, his sobs choked and ragged. But the moment of peace was short-lived. Heavy footsteps echoed from the corridor, and a group of Greek soldiers burst in, swords and spears at the ready. Their leader, a tall soldier with a red-plumed helmet, saw Achilles, Andromache and Astyanax. He sneered. "Achilles, what are you doing here? These are Hector's wife and son. We must slay them to prevent future vengeance." Achilles stepped forward, shielding Andromache and Astyanax. "Stop!" he commanded, his voice like thunder, causing the group to halt. "They are not our enemies. They are innocent." The soldier frowned, his eyes suspicious. "But Achilles, they are Hector's family. If we let them live, they might harbor hatred and seek revenge later. You know that." Achilles shook his head, his eyes blazing with determination. "No. War has already taken too much. Patroclus, Hector, thousands of others. I will not let it take more. Let them go." The soldier hesitated, his hand gripping his sword tightly. The others in the group exchanged uncertain glances. But Achilles' authority, as the greatest warrior among the Greeks, made them not dare to defy him. Finally, the soldier growled and turned away, leading his men out. Achilles turned to Andromache, his voice urgent. "Follow me. I will get you both out of here." The journey through burning Troy. Achilles led Andromache and Astyanax through the flame-engulfed streets of Troy. He walked ahead, his spear always at the ready, his eyes scanning every corner for danger. Andromache carried Astyanax, her hands trembling but her steps steady, determined to survive for her son's sake. Greeks and Trojans were still locked in fierce combat around them. A Trojan soldier, his eyes red with hatred, charged at Achilles, screaming, "You, the one who slayed Hector!" Achilles dodged the sword slash and thrust his spear into the man's leg, bringing him down without slaying him. "I want no more ichor," Achilles muttered, then continued toward the city gate. Flames erupted from a nearby house, collapsing onto the path in front of them. Achilles quickly pulled Andromache and Astyanax back, searching for another way. "Hold Astyanax tight," he said, his voice low but firm. Andromache nodded, clutching her son closer, her eyes full of trust in the man who had once been her husband's enemy. Another group of Greek soldiers blocked their path near the city gate. "Achilles, are you betraying us?" one shouted, pointing his spear at him. "I betray no one," Achilles replied coldly. "I am doing what is right. Step aside or I will be forced to slay you. Safety and farewell." Andromache looked at him, her eyes welling with tears. "Thank you, Achilles. You have saved our lives. I don't know how to express my gratitude." Achilles smiled faintly, a rare softness on his stern face. "No need to thank me. I only did what I promised Hector. He deserved that." Astyanax, with his big round eyes, suddenly let go of his mother's hand and ran to hug Achilles' leg. "Thank you, sir," the boy said, his innocent voice ringing in the stillness. Achilles knelt down, ruffling Astyanax's hair, his gaze tender. "Take care of your mother, and grow up to be a good man, like your father." Andromache pulled Astyanax back, holding him close. She looked at Achilles one last time. "You are a good man, Achilles. I hope that one day the war will end, and we can live in peace." Achilles nodded, but in his heart, he knew peace was a distant dream. He turned and walked back toward Troy, where smoke still rose in thick plumes. He gripped his spear tightly, ready to face whatever awaited him. Reflection under the firelight. As Achilles stood on a hill, looking down at the burning city of Troy, he felt the weight of all that had been lost. He thought of Patroclus, the best friend he could not save, of Hector, the enemy who taught him about honor, and of Andromache and Astyanax, whom he had just given a chance to survive. War was a nightmare, but at least this act had brought him a small measure of solace. He turned away, heading back to the Greek camp, where his fate remained uncertain. But in his heart, the flame of memory for those he loved and respected burned eternally, reminding him of the cost of war and the value of compassion. Achilles' story is one of glory, loss, and the unbreakable will of a warrior. What do you think? Was he a hero or merely another pawn of the gods? Comment below and join the discussion. And don't forget to follow for more epic mythological tales.